doing fantastic things across the world.
Yeah.
So for this session, we have it also streaming on YouTube, and we will have a recorded link after this for us to be able to share with our, with our different groups as possible.
Right.
So Emmanuel,
So,
the floor is
yes,
yours.
I'm starting in a minute, yes.
Yes.
So, let's go. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Emmanuel Etaderi, Executive Secretary, Financial Center for Sustainability, Lagos. It is my unique pleasure and privilege to have in the room with me virtually two distinguished gentlemen. One is the CEO of the Nigerian Climate Innovation Center, Mr. Bankole Olorotoba, and then our special guest is Dr. Olu Fasan, who is a political economist, a lawyer, and he teaches international trade and climate change policies at the prestigious London School of Economics. He also advises the UK government on both subjects. This is our first in the series of fireside chats we'll be having between the NCIC and FC4S Lagos. And today's focus is on climate change policies and energy policies in Nigeria. Over to you, Bankole. I think you're muted, Bankole. Bankole, you're muted.
Okay, sorry for that. A little fidgety here and there. It's been a long time coming for us to have this conversation, and I'd like to thank Prof for giving us this opportunity to have this this exchange of knowledge, around best practices, particularly from the from the UK side of things, and other growth focused economies. I also want to thank our guests for joining from different parts. Like we said, we have this also streaming on YouTube, and we have it also possibly will be streaming on Facebook, and then we'll have a recorded link. So, Prof, thank you for joining us. It's been a very fantastic journey so far. But just before we go into the first question, do you mind if I just ask you that you just share a little bit thoughts about about yourself, and also share a few experiences about how you've been within the within the climate economy for just a while now.
Thank you very much for having me, and I'm very grateful to everyone who is watching this or listening to this across the country or wherever they are watching from. My name is Olu Fasan. Many people who read some Nigerian newspapers will be familiar with my interventions in the columns that I write, both in Business Day and Vanguard every week. I'm a lawyer by practice. My doctorate is in law from the London School of Economics, and I've been teaching there for a while. I specialize in international trade, on climate change issues, and I also kind of advise the government on each of these. I kind of believe that one of the greatest challenges we have at this moment is climate change, and it is something that we must begin to take very seriously. So my wide range of issues, I have worked in different places. I've worked at the WTO, the World Trade Organization in Geneva. I have consulted for the Commonwealth Secretariat on a wide range of issues, especially trade. I have written widely across those on those topics as well. So yes, I hope we have an interesting conversation today. So I look forward to it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. That was a very quick one. So with this role that you share with us, and we know that we are quite familiar of with some of your works and articles. I'm jumping straight into the questions now. like we shared with you earlier, we said we've read through a few of your works, and it is really quite engaging and also challenging, right? But again, in your own words, what do you think? Uh, what do you think climate change is as it resonates to us with this, in the side of this, of the world? And why do you think many people haven't bought into it from your knowledge about how we view climate change?
Oh, thank you very much for that question. That's a very interesting one. I'm going to answer that question in 4 different parts. The first one is, what is climate change? The second one is, what is the proximate cause of climate change? The third is, what must we do about climate change? And the fourth is, why are we not doing it? Or basically, why people are not buying it. If I start with the first one, what is climate change? I think the easiest way to explain climate change is to say that it is all about rising global temperature, right? So people can understand that. I just imagine your home or your house. If the temperature is too high, stuff in the fridge can get frozen. If you don't have an air conditioner, you can feel uncomfortable. So can you imagine, therefore, if the global temperature is rising, it causes a huge range of havoc: flooding, drought, desertification, crop failure, heat waves. There are a whole range of it, and it makes your life, my life, uncomfortable. So, having the atmosphere hotting up, having the global temperature rising is not a good thing, and that is climate change. It's about temperature. Just that is the basic one. Um, the second question is, what causes climate change, or what are the proximate cause? The proximate cause of climate change is the burning of fossil fuel. The more we burn fossil fuel, which includes coal, the dirtiest of them, oil, gas, and generally, greenhouse gases, methane, and all that. The more we burn this fossil fuel, the more we emit carbon. And as the carbon goes up, they heat up the atmosphere. So that is the main cause. It is carbon. It is greenhouse gases that are causing it. Simple. What must we do about it? Well, the answer seems to be straightforward from the one I gave. We must stop burning our fossil fuel. At the Paris conference in 2015, it was agreed that we must keep global temperature below 2 degrees. And in fact, we must aim for 1.5 degrees, right? And that is it. There is a statistic that says that for every 1 trillion tons of carbon that we emit, the global temperature goes up by about 2.5 degrees. And at the moment, we are emitting about 51 billion tons of carbon every year. So if we keep emitting to 51 billion carbons every year, and we are not stopping, we are not going down, we keep increasing, you can imagine that global temperature will go well below 3.5 degrees. It will go up to 6 degrees. We are in trouble. We're in trouble. So the solution, therefore, is, and the way to bring global temperature within 2 degrees or 1.5 degrees is to decarbonize, to move away from carbon intensity to low carbon, move away from fossil fuel to renewables. That is what we must do. The final question, why are we not doing it? Why are some people not buying into it? Well, when I teach my students, we use 3 analytical perspectives to explain it. The first is what we call rational choice. The second is what we call the constructivist perspective. And the third is institutions. I will explain what it means. Rational choice theory is about you and I always being conscious of cost, right? So we look at what is costing us. And one of the major reasons why people don't buy into like climate change is that each of the climate action that we need to take has immediate cost, even though long-term benefits. So let's give an example. One of the costs of climate change is aviation, right? So if, as the UK government decides to do, they're going to tax air tickets. So the further you go, the higher the tax goes up. Middle class people will begin to say, "Oh, it's too expensive, it's too costly. What is this climate change thing? We can't fly anymore." Or take another example. If you want to move away from fossil fuel into renewables, you must stop subsidizing fossil fuel. So take, for example, if Nigerians, we withdraw petroleum or some petroleum in order to put all the money into renewables, what is people's reaction? So the primary reason, one of the reasons, is cost. People are conscious of the costs they have to pay. If you are a government that is so dependent on fossil fuel like Nigeria, you begin to think of, you begin to think of cost. So cost is the first one. The second one, the controversy one, is about belief. There are a lot of people who still don't believe the science about climate change. Is it man-made? Is it not man-made? Where is the science? People talk about this Armageddon, where we can't see it happening. And people still don't believe that it is real. And sometimes some of the science about climate change talks about the impact more into the future, what will happen in 10 years' time. And we know, you and I know, human beings tend to discount the future. They don't want to deny themselves of what they're enjoying now in order to enjoy something in the future. So the belief is there, so there's lack of belief, and the people a lot of and then the third one is what I call institutions, about capacity. To really tackle climate change and move the renewables, you need to have the right institutional framework. You need to have the right capacity, right? So those are the I don't want to talk to those are my answers to those questions. But each of those answers has a solution. The cost one, the answer to it is to tell people that the cost of doing nothing is far, far greater than the cost of doing something now. That's the answer. So anybody who bring the cost, the inconvenience and all this, it's in Nigeria. Look, we are Nigerians. Look at COVID-19. The government will come out with protocols, face mask and all those. People don't use them because they don't want to inconvenience themselves. But when they look at people dying from COVID-19, they know this thing is real. So climate change is real. So the cost of doing nothing is far, far greater than the cost of doing something. On the ideas thing, whether it is true or right, we must tell people that the science is true, the science is right. There's climate change. We have seen the impact. We see desertification. We see flooding. We see heat waves. It may not have come in the degree that people say it will come, but if we don't do something, it will come in that degree. And the final one about capacity is a matter of will. It's a political will. If we make up our mind to build the capacity, we can build the capacity. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Prof. That was more like climate change 101 for many of us. Yeah, in this class, I hope we get we get to learn. Those who have joined us, have clearly understood how this works. And so you're, going from your last point, you mentioned something about the political will. And we know that the Nigerian government has been making as much effort, from designing the NDCs and also submitting the NDCs and the president signing off the NDCs as quick as possible, to enable us also spur up the whole green economy and transition to renewable energy. So, in your own assessment, I'm not sure if you've read the Nigerians submission for the NDCs, but in your own assessment so far of the Nigerian progress. What do you think? How do you think we can address these climate change issues on a broad level, and more specifically in the transition to renewable energy?
To be honest with you, I believe that Nigeria has been paying lip service to climate change mitigation. when you talk to Nigerian government, they say, well, Nigeria is hugely impacted by climate change. So nobody is denying the impact of climate change in Nigeria. We have seen it. We've seen desertification. We've seen heat waves. We've seen crop failure. We've seen all of this. So the question of denying the impact is not there. The impact is clear. But if the impact is clear, the question is that why is the action so minuscule? Why are the actions so small? Because the theory is that crisis brings about change. So if we are in a state of crisis, why is the change too slow? That's the main thing. Nigeria is the 17th biggest emitters according to by 2015 figure. We are the 17th. We are the second in Africa after South Africa. But we are the slowest in Africa. Kenya, other countries are embracing renewables, in a way that Nigeria is not thinking about it. Now, what is really fascinating about Nigeria for me is that sometimes it's not even about the policy. It's about the implementation. So if you look at the Nigerian climate change policy of 2013, which was dated 2013, look at the commitments there. It says, for instance, on fossil fuel, we will decrease fossil fuel, we'll promote energy efficiency, we will eliminate subsidies on fossil fuel, we will gradually eliminate gas flaring. On the renewable, we will subsidize renewable generation. There are a lot of commitments there. Then you take about our climate pledge, 2015. What did we promise? We promise, that we will ramp up the rollout of solar energy production. We promise that we will improve energy efficiency. We promise that we will end gas flaring. How far have we gone in all of this? According to the International Energy Agency, greenhouse gas emission has gone up by 60% from 2015 to date. So it has not even, it's not been coming down, it's been going up. So what is the whole idea? Where is the impact? An estimated 7.4 billion cubic feet of gas is being flared every year. So, in Nigeria, in 2018. So, and then when you talk of solar, wind, how far have we gone? It's about our promises. We have not seen the impact on the ground. But if you really, if you consider that in 2015, we have the same carbon emission, Nigeria, as the UK had, the same, which is about 560, a million. But look at how UK has gone, in terms of all of this. So I think for me, it's a question of political will. It's a question of Nigeria needing to do something fast. But I'm aware of the debate in Nigeria. I'm aware of the argument in Nigeria. There are people who, as we speak, will say, oh, well, Nigeria must continue to burn more fuel to generate electricity. We have 5.3 trillion cubic of natural gas reserve. We have 279 millions, reserve of coal. What are we going to do with them? We continue to burn. There is an argument there. But my point is that Nigeria faces two strategic choices. The first choice is that does it want to, if it remains as a fossil fuel economy, the first choice is how does it tackle climate change? Because climate change is real. We cannot have a fossil fuel economy on one hand and say we are tackling climate change. The second strategic decision is that as a fossil fuel economy, in a world that is moving close to net zero, in a world where the demand for fossil fuel is dropping, what is the future for Nigeria as a fossil fuel dependent economy? So we need to move away from fossil fuel, gradually at least. We need to move into renewables, and that is a critical thing I think we have. So to answer your question, we're not doing enough. The policies that are already on the ground are not fully implemented, and it's not ambitious enough. So the pace at which we must move to renewables is at the moment is too slow, and we need to ramp up that very quickly.
Okay, Prof, I've listened with keen interest and attention to your response to the question so far, and you landed your last point on the issue of policy. And I think I heard you say it appears the policy is not ambitious enough. And I think I can second that motion because I've seen countries like Costa Rica that decided to go 100% renewable energy, and they so far have achieved it. So in terms of policy, what more in specific terms do you think we can do? Even in the course of developing the policy and giving your background as an advisor on energy and climate change policies to the UK government, what do you think we can do more so that we can deliver the NDC's target? Even the process of developing the policy, do you think there's a need for a more wider consultation with experts like yourself and other interested individuals who have been studying this particular subject, and so that people can have more input? Let me hear your thoughts, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Let me tell you a story. In 2015, when we have the Paris conference, climate conference, Nigeria was one of the last two countries to submit the NDC. The last two countries were kind of a last-minute rush. The French ambassador in Nigeria had to go public, literally to beg Nigeria, please submit your NDCs. But when it came to the conference, our president, the Senate president, everybody went with an entourage, large entourage to Paris. So the political bit and enjoyment and the, I don't know, I'm not trying to criticize. The point I'm making is that the real thing about the policy is ignored, but the glamour of attending that conference is prioritized. I wrote an article about it at the time, saying, look, where you can't even get your NDC ready until the last day deadline, but when it comes to the conference, yes, you are there. So it's the extent to which we prioritize days, and Nigerian pledge. Look at it: 20% unconditional carbon emission reduction by 2030. 45% if we have international support. In this day and age, 20%, or even if the government intends to increase it, So my first answer to the question is that, as I said earlier, we need to reorientate ourselves as a government to say that I think it's more like a normative shift. If we believe in climate mitigation and it's a matter of policy, then we will shift our policy in that respect. My view is that within government, there is still that lack of that normative conviction, normative belief that we've got to do something. There are people who are still hung up, who are still believing this fossil fuel thing. So what are we going to do with our gas reserves? What are we going to do with our oil reserves? What are we going to do with our coal reserves? We've got to use them. So we need to first of all start by try to educate. Well, maybe not education is not the right word. Try to inform those in government to understand that there needs to be that mental shift away from depending on fossil fuel. Once you make that mental shift, then policy will follow. You see, that's why ideas always drive policies. When you shift the ideas, when you believe in your mind that is the right thing to do, then the policy will follow, right? But I don't think we have got to that kind of mental shift yet. So that's the point. The second bit is that clearly the policy is not enough. There is no way in which you can deal with climate change without decarbonization. You have to decarbonize your economy. You have to move away from carbon intensity to move away from low carbon intensity. That is the way to deal with it. You can't have it both ways. You cannot have a carbon intensive economy and talk of dealing with climate change. You got to shift that. You got to drive energy efficiency with vigor, because the critical issue is that if we reduce that, if we manage you use energy efficiently, then we can deal with the issue. You can't ramp up, as you like to say about Costa Rica. about Kenya. It is not rocket science. It's doable to have renewables, right? We have seen it work. We have seen countries that have put solar and everything, and it's working. So, my point is that as an academic and a policy person, it starts for me from that mental shift. So, what part of the program you are doing today, I think is part of that. If we begin to inform government, inform people to make that mental shift, to understand the strategic consequences of being too dependent on fossil fuel in years to come. One, on climate change. Two, on demand for oil, because the demand is going to go down, our economy is going to go to that. So we need to begin to think strategically, what is going to happen? How are we going to position ourselves in the world that is moving towards net zero, in a world that is moving towards low carbon, in a world that is moving towards renewables? How are we going to position ourselves as a fossil fuel dependent economy? We need to make that shift. And if we don't make that shift, it's going to be problematic in years and years and years to come.
Thank you very much, Prof. I just add a bit more. I'm trying to X-ray the updated nationally determined contribution that Nigeria submitted to the Paris to the international community on climate change. And one of a few of the things they've mentioned as an improvement from the earlier position in 2015 is that there will now be focus on increasing the efficiency of gas generators. Also, a shift in transportation systems from car to bus, and then also improved electricity grid and climate smart agriculture. Can you touch briefly on each of this? Because I know you have experience and you've seen each of these items, what has been done in more developed markets, particularly in the area of the electricity grid. They just said improved electricity grid or improve electricity grid. So I think prior to our starting this session, you made some very key points about the grid. So do you want to just touch a bit on it? Because I would like to have our listeners understand the concept of what it means to have, improvement in the electricity grid vis-a-vis the reliance on more sustainable power generation systems like renewables. Thank you.
I read the updated one, which was submitted, I think it was 27th of May. When you talk of improve electricity grid, the question is, what do you mean by improvement? Do you mean you want to decarbonize the electricity grid? Yeah? Or do you mean that you want to improve energy efficiency? Or are you talking about the infrastructure in that respect? So the critical issue when you talk about electricity grid in this country, when you talk of improving electricity grid, it's about decarbonizing the electricity grid, yeah, right? It's about shifting away from carbon. So the United Kingdom, for instance, has closed. Will close by 2024 all its gas plants. Of all its coal plants. And shift away from even gas into wind and solar and all the rest. So when you want to talk about improved electricity grid, the question is, are you decarbonizing electricity grid? Well, that's the critical issue. So improving it without decarbonizing it doesn't solve the problem. Because I don't understand what improve mean, other than to say you want to decarbonize it, or you want to really improve electricity grid by using more renewables and low carbon. Then we understand that, right? And when you, and those are the issues. Another one is, when the government talk about, we want to phase out the use of kerosene lighting, and I say, well, kerosene lighting in 2030, and I begin to scratch my head. Why? This is something that we should do even now, because kerosene lighting is so crude, and that's a function of the fact that there is no electricity in Nigeria. Nearly, 2/3 of Nigeria, Nigerians don't have electricity, and the people use kerosene because they don't have alternatives. So when you still go far away until 2030 before you can phase out kerosene lighting, I think that's not ambitious enough. There needs to be action that needs to take, to make sure that it's phased out very quickly before even 2030. So as I said, I have read, I cannot imagine, I have not, from sitting here in the UK, I'm not saying that Nigeria it's not good that you have ambition about all that. The question is that you have to get down into the nitty-gritty of what are the specific policies that you implement that will make sure that the electricity grid or the national grid is decarbonized. How are you going to move away from dependent on generating electricity from fossil fuel to generating electricity from renewables and low carbon? So those are the issues those are the points I want to hear. So and those are the things that are not happening, because again we have not made that mental shift away from fossil fuel, because we are still saying, yeah, that is the only thing we need. And so it's about thinking at the edges rather than trying to tackle something from the core.
Thank you very much, Prof. Bankole, over to you if you're ready. Okay, while we're waiting for...
Of course, yes.
Better.
So,
go ahead, Bankole.
Prof, I mean, just again, piggybacking on what Emmanuel has been, has been asking, and also following your response so far. So, so my next question is, right, given that this revised NDC assigned 60% of the total greenhouse gas emissions for 2018 to energy consumption, right, with no expectation of increasing higher contribution in subsequent years. What do you think that we can do, given the level at which our interests are and the processes that are going on currently within the country? What do you think we can do to effectively reverse this trend?
Thank you. I mean, I think the first good thing that is happening is that we are measuring the contribution of each of the sectors, because if you have to start to understand what the sectors are doing. So we know that now energy consumption contributes 60% to our carbon emission. And then when you break this down further, you know that these are coming from gas and oil and gas. It's coming from transport, it's coming from electricity generation, it's coming from residential, it's coming from industrial consumption. So you have broken this down. And once you break it down, and as we do in the UK, you break this down and then you target each of the sectors. So what is happening to building? So for instance, in all of this time, residential, the government in the UK, there's a lot around energy efficiency in homes. There's a lot around retrofitting, so that you can retrofit your home. And there's a lot around changing, if you are using gas boilers, to change from gas boiler to heat pumps and all of those things. So there are policies for each of the sectors. And if you're talking in terms of transportation, are you moving to electric cars, electric vehicles? So the UK, for instance, has banned internal combustion. I mean, the cars that are coming by 2030. So we've got to move into electric cars. So you have to tackle each section like that. And if you look up, if you're talking of industrial consumption, how do you decarbonize industries? How do you encourage industries to move into renewables? To move into renewables and make sure that generate their energy through renewable use. Whether they do it individually, I mean, there are a lot of companies in the UK industries that have their own renewable plants, that have their own solar energy, they have their own solar plants. So you don't have to rely on the national grid. So you look at each of the sectors and ask, and that requires, as part of the last question said, that requires stakeholder engagement. That requires engaging with the sectors. So you engage with the transport sector, the construction sector, you engage with the industrial sector, you engage and you, with that engagement, they make commitments as to what they can do, and what the government can do is interact to reduce emission. But all done and said, the critical point I need to make is that if energy is accounting for 60%, then we have to decarbonize it. How are we moving away? I keep using the word decarbonization, but that is language we understand. And then the critical question I must ask you, or we must ask ourselves: if energy accounts for 60% of greenhouse gas emission, why are we still subsidizing the energy sector. Because you cannot, on the one hand, complain that energy consumption is causing a huge amount of emission, but at the same time, subsidizing fossil fuel production. So one of the ways to shift away is through removing subsidies from energy consumption, right? And to shift people to begin to think about the alternatives. So you cannot deal with it, and that is the way it is dealt with everywhere. You do not subsidize what you want to discourage. You shift because you shift your subsidies, your regulation, your taxes to incentivize what you want to encourage and to disincentivize what you want to discourage. So it is not possible to be complaining about energy being a contributor to carbon emission, but at the same time pouring more subsidies in that sector. So that's what you want to decarbonize, you want to encourage energy efficiency, you want to withdraw subsidies, or you want. I mean, I know that this is complicated for anyone listening about withdraw subsidy, but we need to shift subsidies away from fossil fuel and shift it to. Just take an example. If the $300 million that is spent every month on petrol subsidy, if that is put in an account and we're shifting that money into renewable production, are we going to make progress? I think we will. Yeah. Now, but that requires engagement with stakeholders. That requires educating the public, saying people know where the money is going, and they see, and when they begin to see solar panels, and they begin to see renewables, and they begin to see electricity generation is increasing, and then people will buy into it. But you cannot be subsidizing fossil fuel and at the same time be talking about tackling climate change.
Thank you very much, Prof. So let me pick a point from your last response, right, around how we need to increase production of renewable energy sources, or rather stimulate renewable energy sources for us to be able to reverse this trend of seeing a high level of energy consumption and the GHG emissions coming up from these places. I know that with the work that you've done so far, you've also shared with us how Britain has generated over 42% of its energy from renewable energy sources, from renewable sources, from wind, solar, bio, and hydro, within the year 2020. What do you think is working well for the British? Do you think it's the policies, or do you think it's the economy, in terms of the private sector side of things?
Look, it's both, but let me explain what is working in the UK context. 4 things are working. The first is legislation. The second is institution. The third is policy. And the fourth is incentives. I will explain. The overarching legislation that governs climate change and energy in the UK is the 2008 Climate Change Act. That Climate Change Act of 2008, everything starts from there. That act creates an institution called the Climate Change Commission, CCC, right? It is an independent arm's length body. The government doesn't influence it. So this Climate Change Commission is charged to challenge the government on its climate change and energy policy. So the Climate Change Commission, or the CCC, publishes what they call the carbon budget. So the carbon budget will tell the government how much carbon emission is allowed within 5 years. So it's like you have a budget and say, that's how much you can spend. Yeah, the budget says you can only spend £1,000. I'm giving an example. So the climate change the climate change committee will publish the carbon budget, and it will send the target of carbon emission that's allowed. that the government in the country. Once he has set that ceiling for 5 years, the government is then challenged to come out with policies as how it will stay within that budget, that target, right? We are talking of legally binding commitment because the Climate Change Act already commits the government, binds the government legally. So if the government is not following it, NGOs will take the government to the courts and challenge it, right? So the Climate Change Act is already constraining the government to do things. That's right. So when the Climate Committee released the budget, the government would then come up, publish its policies on how it will stay within that budget. Now, these policies always take two types. Is one policy is about energy generation. Now was renewables and low carbon. The second policy is about reducing carbon emission. The first policy, the one about reducing carbon emission, is tackled through carbon prices and carbon taxes, right? So you have the ETS, emission trading scheme, right? Which means that as companies emit more carbon, they pay more, they pay for it. So the emitters will pay. So you have the emission trading scheme, and then you have the carbon tax, which is the government put the tax. The more carbon you emit, the more tax you pay for a company. And that has been working, right? And then you have, and then you have the second element to it, which is the renewable energy generation. There are 3 schemes that the government uses in the UK. The first is what they call CFD, contract for difference. The contract for difference is where the government incentivizes big investors into energy generation, into renewables, and guarantees the stability and the predictability of their income stream. So, if you're a Japanese coming to invest in nuclear or coming to invest in wind, your income is guaranteed. The government says if your profit or your market price fall below certain level, we will intervene and support it. So there is that government effort. Government is not putting money into it. It's actually guaranteeing the investors' income stream, right? So and that is the first one. And as a result of that, a lot of investors from Chinese, Japanese, and they come and they're investing in UK renewables. The second scheme that the government uses is what they call renewable obligation. The renewable obligation ensures that energy suppliers will buy a certain amount of their energy in renewables. So the second policy supports the first one. So that as you are generating renewables, there is a market for it. There are people who are buying it, right? So the renewable obligation means that if you are an energy supplier, 40% or 50% of your energy that you supply to your customers must be renewables, right? So you get that. The third scheme that the government uses is micro level, which is called the feed-in tariffs, which is for people who generate renewables in their homes, in their communities. So the government incentivizes that, and they get paid for generating renewables at a small level. So why the contract for difference, why the renewables deal with large scale energy generation, the feed-in tariffs deal with small scale generation. So you can have small community, you have an individual pulling solar in his house. You can have a company pulling solar in their house, and they get paid for doing that. And there are other incentives like the Green Deal, that the deal the government will give to you to improve your homes and so on. And so essentially, it is all of these efforts, right? Now, what I need to say is that, because someone say, well, where is the money coming from? It is not forever. Government does not subsidize forever. In fact, now the renewable obligation has been stopped because renewables are already in the market. Because what happens with renewable generation is that the initial outlay is high, but over the time, the benefits begin to come. So you need support at that initial level of outlay, and that is where government is coming. So essentially, that is what has brought government UK into this area. And of course, in terms of climate change, there are a range of policies that government has introduced to make sure people live. So, for instance, I've just given an example about the aviation. Government will tax you if you fly. They are banning gas boilers. They say replace your gas boilers and use heat pump. They are banning the sale of new petrol and diesel cars by 2030. New petrol and diesel cars, you won't see it. They're banned. Nigeria is still talking about kerosene, but here they are banning new vessels. Air travelers will pay more if you travel. So sorry, and the power stations are closed. Power stations will be closed. By 30, there'll be new taxes on meat, because one of the areas of climate change is breeding of cows and meat and agriculture. So the tax. So to be absolutely honest, to be absolutely honest, that's why I started at the beginning. Some of the action you need to take for climate change will have impact on us. We have to make sacrifices, and as individuals, But that includes the government engaging with stakeholders and telling them, oh, if you say, well, if you to travel to London, Japan, and Dubai, well, your flight will go by 10% because we want to do that, or by 2050 we want to phase out all diesel or petrol cars, but that involves engagement. So all I'm saying, the government didn't join in one day. They engage with the stakeholders. They tell them why climate is important. They tell them what the government actions will bear fruit. They tell them that they need to pay a little bit more for the renewable energy that they get.
Thank you very much, Prof. Sorry to cut in. Thank you very much. I'm just enjoying the points you're raising, and you've brought out some very, very important points that shows the seriousness with which the British government has taken the issue of climate change, and it leads me into my next question. Given the cultural differences between the UK and Nigeria, I know you have to do things incrementally and step by step. So which of these policies do you think we can start with? Because I see that the UK has gone far ahead and Nigeria is so far behind. Nigeria is far behind not because it lacks the resources, it's because probably it has not actually taken it the same way as other countries are taking it. It's not looked at the issue from that point of view. I mean, issues such as the point of cutting down on meat consumption, which is actually good for our health. People don't even understand that if they say they want to maintain a healthier life, and they can actually cut down on meat consumption, and that's cutting down will also help climate change issues. So which of these things do you think, and of course that's because of the ruminant nature of cows, and all of that, and what it means for carbon sequestration and all of that all of those issues. But I wanted to break it down to more specifics in terms of between these two countries, because you're advisor to Britain, you're a Nigerian. Which of these policies do you think we can adopt? Because given that we have cultural differences, it might not be easy to take 100% at a go what they're doing in that part of the world. What can we do in incremental steps as a nation that will put us firmly on the path of a positive reaction to climate change that will help us?
Thank you very much. I think the first thing that we need to do, and I will keep going back to it, we need to signal to the rest of the world that we are serious about becoming a low carbon economy. We need to signal. We need to send to the rest of the world that we are serious about renewable energy generation. That's number one. And we need to back it up with the right policies. Then we need to incentivize investments. All the examples I have given, the UK government, the CFD, for instance, the contract for difference, all the government simply did was guarantee the guaranteed income streams. So there was no money put up front. So, but it comes down to whether the question of trust. If the Nigerian government say, well, we will guarantee your income stream for the next 20, 50 years, can the investor be confident that a new government will not change the policy? Can the investor be confident that the Nigerian government will stick with the commitment? So first of all, the climate change cannot be achieved by public finance alone. It's got to come from private capital. But private capital will only come, investor will only come when they know that the government is serious, the government is genuine, and there's a trust element. But there is also, I think the feed-in tariffs one is a good one, because that is one of the ways in which you decentralize energy generation by allowing communities, by allowing small businesses, to move to the rainbows, and government incentivize it. At least if you cannot start with the big ones, why don't we start by decentralizing renewable energy generation, by encouraging communities, SMEs, to go into that, and so that they can install more solar panels, they can install more wind turbines, and so on and so forth. That's the critical thing, But we need to say to people, there is no way, as I said, you can be subsidizing fossil fuel and saying you want to move away. So we need to say to people, one of the arguments for removing a petroleum subsidy, apart from the fact that the distortion it caused in the economy, is to say, if you say to the country, we will remove this 200 million every month, we will put it in a separate account in order to support renewable energy generation, solar panels, and so on, and people are seeing the result of it, I believe people will shift. And then we need to begin to educate people about, as you said, about meat, about the way we breed animals, about agriculture. And Nigerians talk about smart agriculture or climate smart agriculture. But what does it really mean? Climate change smart agriculture must aim at decarbonization. If the end result is not to decarbonize and to reduce the use of energy, then we have not achieved it. It's just a statement. So that's what I think. It is. We can start small. We cannot impose a heavy burden on the people, especially given level of poverty in Nigeria. The British people can bear paying extra tax on air ticket because middle classes are doing it. They can probably pay extra amount on meat, but at least we can start somewhere educating people about the cost and the price that is involved and what the government will do on its own part. So, and that is what I think we should do. But let's start by generating energy from renewables, even at a small scale level.
Thank you, Prof.
And yes.
Yeah, let me cut in again. So sorry about that, but I just got something from one of the participants, and I think I wanted to read it out to you. So she says, her name is Joan, and she says, "Good morning, Prof. You mentioned that the government in the UK engages stakeholders. How do our government achieve that when most of them are oblivious of the consequences of continuing the usage of fossil fuels, in addition to the benefits of the shift from the status quo?" I mean, I think this question is germane to the points you've been raising.
You've answered my question. There is no country that achieves the shift from renewable or achieves tackle climate change that move into renewables without that mental shift. In Nigeria, we are still at least as at last year or 2 years ago, government are still saying that our energy mix, that 30% of it will come from coal. They are still saying it, that look, it will come from coal. And they're still saying gas is going to be central to everything. And even if gas is going to be central, where is the technology like the carbon capture? So, are we having something like carbon capture? So if you're going to, gas flaring is there and it's causing havoc. So the government cannot be saying, because the problem I write in Nigeria for Nigerians for every week, and it's frustrating because the people in government We need people who have the right mental shift to work in there. But if you have people who are ministers, who are policy advisors, who don't believe in renewables, who don't believe Nigeria can ever win itself of coal, of gas, of oil, that's nothing. So that's why this program is useful in trying to put pressure, well, maybe not pressure, in trying to inform government that in economics, that's what we call trade-off or opportunity cost. Everything you do have a trade-off. If you don't do this, there are consequences of not doing it. If you do it, there are consequences. So if we remain a fossil fuel economy, I will keep repeating myself. One, we will not tackle climate change. Two, we are more or less mortgaging the future, because the world is moving away from fossil fuel. They move into electric vehicles. They're moving into low carbon, net zero. And in that world, I mean, let's give an example. Last week or last month, the G7, the G7 countries, they made the pledge that they will no longer fund coal mining in overseas. So if the wealthy countries say we are no longer funding coal, why are you saying you want to generate electricity from 30% coal? China is the only one that is still funding coal, but there's a lot of pressure now on China to stop funding it. So but whereas there is a lot of money to fund renewables, a lot of money to fund low carbon, and that is where we need to begin to shift our attention to. Thank you.
Over to you, Bankole.
I mean, the conversation has been really engaging, at this point, all the conversations. So, Prof, as you may know, in the organization where I lead, we are very focused on innovation side of things around the green economy and also SME development. So in the whole of all this whole, sphere of conversation and, strategies and solutions and co, we all also know that SME is the lifeline of any new economy and also any new, any sort of innovation that needs to grow a market, right? And so do you think that SMEs are important in this journey of scaling renewable energy, in Nigeria, looking at all what has been happening so far? What's your thought?
I mean, yeah, SME is absolutely important. Absolutely important. But there are two things I need to say. One, as I said before, renewable energy generation need government support at the initial level. Subsidies, encouragement, right? So, and that's why I talk about the feed-in tariffs, where the government can incentivize SMEs to go into that and get them to begin to generate renewables. So SMEs were going to be critical, and they're critical here. They're critical everywhere. They are the ones that can install solar panels. They're the ones that can install solar panel. They are the ones that can generate electricity, maybe through hydro. It's small, So SMEs is absolutely important, and my argument is that government must support them. Government must support SMEs to take it up. In Nigeria, we say that the government put a lot of money in agriculture. They do it for two reasons. One, they want to create jobs. Second, they want to ensure food security. I think the same logic applies to renewable generation. First of all, there is a lot of jobs that can come through that sector. And secondly, it will help to ensure energy security in a way. So if the government also shifts some attention and support SMEs to move into renewables, to move into solar, thing, in the field, in the short, there are a lot of jobs will be created in that sector. You talk about innovation, talk about green skills, talk about digital economy. There's a lot that's come around. The climate change is bringing laws, is creating new green skills. New green skills. A lot of younger people are going into climate change area to learn new skills. how to retrofit homes, how to install this. There is a lot of jobs that's coming there. You talk a lot in terms of the energy that we generated. So my view is that the government must help, but the private sector must help the SMEs, because the private sector must come in with the finance. So, for instance, when I talk of solar panel, the installation, if the private sector if you can get a loan to install your solar, and the government can incentivize the income stream, that kind of combination of effort will get people to want to go into that sector. So I mean, you can, and in the communities, but I think we should be a country that doesn't just talk, but a country that acts. My challenge with Nigeria is there's a lot of talking. We talk, and there is little action. There needs to be action. And then the other day, I think the vice president, the man I respect very much, was demonstrating an electric car. Fine, but how do we ramp that up? Is it just one demonstration? What is the plan to ramp it up? What is the plan to to scale up that kind of innovation? So those are the things that we need to be talking about.
All right, I think I'll just come with the last question for this session. Yeah, Bankole, hope you don't mind. Excellent, because I think we're running out of time. But on a final note, Prof, and thank you so much for the very valid points you've laid out in the course of the interaction. On a final note, what is your advice for the different stakeholders listening to this session on how to accelerate the drive to a climate resilient and energy efficient economy in Nigeria? You've spoken to government, you've spoken to the private sector, but there are things we must do. As individuals and as stakeholders, what is your final notes of advice?
I think my final advice to the individuals and stakeholders and citizens of Nigeria is we must not behave as we behave with respect to COVID-19, where we don't take it serious until we begin to see people dying. We must believe that climate change is real. That is the first thing. We need to know climate change is real. We see it from the amount of dust in Lagos. We see it from the desertification in the north. We see it from heat waves. We see it in the country where people don't have electricity and air conditioner. So climate change is real, and every individual has an action to play. Now we must put pressure on the government to shift their minds away from depending on burning coals and burning gas and burning oil to install renewable technology. But there is a price, there's a cost for each of us initially, but ultimately the cost of doing nothing is greater than the cost of doing something. That is the first thing. For NGOs and think tanks, they must do what you are doing. We must inform our government. We must educate our citizens. We must tell them the cost and benefit of our actions, and we must let them know. I said about the UK. One of the main drivers in this country is the very buoyant and very formidable green NGOs. The green NGOs, that the pressure they put on government. We have seen in Germany, the Green Party may be the ruling party in the election in November, because people are shifting to green. So the NGOs and the green organization or the renewables will need to begin to make those thing. And then the other one is the private sector. Please, renewables, energy, and all of that cannot be done by government alone. Invest in it. Then the question of the finance, banks. I don't know about the climate finance regime in Nigeria, how much banks it really, but in this country, one of the drivers of climate change is that investors are putting pressure on their on the fund managers to begin to invest in renewables and low carbon ethane. So our investors, institutional investors should make sure their fund managers, the additional fund and banks are encouraging private sector or small businesses to get into renewables and to begin to shift. So we need to make that shift. Finally, for me, government question for government: are we going to be a fossil fuel economy for how long? And if so, do we know the implications in terms of climate change? Do we know the implications in terms of demand for our products? And especially when the population of Nigeria is predicted to overtake that of China by 2050. How do we deal with that? Thank you.
Thank you
so much. Bankole, over to you.
Prof, that question is a very serious question, and I think I'm going to post it on all of my social media handles, which is, are we going to be a fossil fuel driven economy or not, so that we can know exactly what we're doing? Prof, I would like to thank you so much for the 1 hour spent so far, and it has been a very, very educating 1 hour. There've been questions back and forth. Even some of our guests are also asking questions, trying to understand a lot more. And this has been really refreshing. Getting a different perspective, still putting into context, the things happening in Nigeria and how Nigeria can move a lot more forward. I would like to thank you again for your time, and I hope that we can call on you in our subsequent, editions as it leads to you. And also, if you visit Nigeria anytime soon, the both of us will also be available to also have a sit with you, and also to to possibly learn more from your wealth of knowledge. And to all of our guests who have been here both on this platform and all the other ones, I'd like to say thank you for your patience and for staying all through this session. And let's look forward to this again in a few more weeks, and we will have another wonderful guest. Prof, thank you.
Thank you very much, Eddie. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
This
was my pleasure.
Pleasure.
Right, so
thank you.
We hope that we can visit the COP26, and I hope that we will also, meet you.
Yes, do finish COP26. Yes.
By the grace of God. Yes.
Thank you
so much. All right.
Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you in person.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bankole, well done. Tosin, we can stay on board and continue our meeting briefly.
Don't get it twisted.